Hello, and welcome back to Emerge, the health podcast for busy, high performing women. I'm your host, Dr. Alex Swenson Ridley. Today, we are talking about commitments, parasites, and priorities in no particular order. And I'll share a little bit about how I came up with this title and this topic. Hopefully, you guys enjoy just my random musings. But I am currently traveling, so I am recording this in Minneapolis, where I flew all night with my child to drop his dad lives here. So several times a year we come and I usually bring him and also pick him up. That's just the way that works. But leading up to traveling, we sometimes have our normal schedule thrown off because my son is 8, and so he might be feeling emotional about being away from home and also excited about seeing his dad. And, there's just all this stuff that goes into this. So my big plan was to record this before we came, but we ended up both being sick the week before, and my son just needed some time and attention from mom. And I'm now going to be without him for 3 weeks. So I was like, you know what? I can record it when I get there. I slept for an hour and a half last night on the plane. Maybe we left at 3 a.m. And as I was wandering around Mall of America, because I didn't really know what else to do with myself, being in a kind of dazed and tired state, but not really ready to go crash for the day, I was thinking about, what do I want to talk about on the podcast? Because here's the thing, it's not really an option for me to not show up and record an episode at this point. I just enjoy this. And so I do it. And, as I kind of got settled in my Airbnb, which is where I'm recording this right now, I was thinking about, well, we all have things that we're committed to. And obviously, doing this and producing content and showing up and just sharing my ideas, which I hear feedback, are generally helpful, is something that I'm obviously committed to because I'm willing to do it with no sleep. And, I like washed my face and I didn't put on makeup because my eyes feel dry. So I'm showing up. I'm wearing a nice shirt, but I'll be honest, ladies, I've got pajama bottoms on, on the bottom. I'm totally in relaxation mode. But it got me thinking about, what are we really committed to in our lives and how do we prioritize them? Because this is, the question of balance is something that I get so often from the women that I work with. And like, how do we find that balance? How do we create that? And I think the thing I agree with the most that I've heard, from different people that I've picked their brain on this as well, because it's like this thing that we're always striving for, but isn't actually achievable, right? And for so many of us, it's like this figment of our imagination that this thing exists called balance in our life. And I don't say that to be negative in any way. I think, the way I like to really look at it and that perspective I have at this point is our focus and what takes, more of our attention at any given time might change from moment to moment, week to week, minute to minute, hour to hour, year to year, all, and inside of whatever constraint of time you're looking at. That brings up another interesting conversation, is the concept of time, but we'll table that for another time. Whatever that looks like it's going to ebb and flow. I made the choice over the weekend to spend more time with and focus on my son because I'm not going to see him for almost 3 weeks, and like that's hard on me as a mom and on him as a kid. So I knew he needed extra cuddles and extra time with me and all that. So I just tabled when I would have normally tried to work ahead and get ahead of the game and said, like, I'll make this work outside of that. Same way, even though I'm running on very little sleep and wondering, maybe I shouldn't be doing this right now. I'm just kidding. But, I have a commitment to put out 2 episodes a week, one, being a solo show and one being an interview, which I do record those ahead of time. So I have one in the pipeline already. But, it's not a question of like, I did my thing, kind of relaxed earlier, and I came here and I'm like, okay, I'm going to show up and record this. So my question for you is, and those are just 2 examples, right? What are the things that you are consistently committed to? Is it some sort of exercise? Is it in some way taking care of yourself? Like, I'll share some of the other things I did today. I stopped and picked up good water that I can drink so I can stay hydrated because I've been flying all night and not sleeping, and hydration is important. I'll talk about the parasite thing in a second because that relates to all this. I got myself some snacks because I'm going to be driving. I have some clients in Minnesota, so I'm going to be kind of driving around and visiting with some of them who I haven't seen in person. So that's going to be kind of cool. So I picked up some snacks and did some stuff for myself. And then I went and got my steps in wandering around the mall and got, a few things that I actually needed. And got dinner and now I'm here. But there's this element of self-care and making that important, whereas someone else might have a completely different approach when traveling. So back to, focusing this in on you, just when no one's watching, when you can just kind of do whatever you want, when there's no judgment, no pressure, none of those things. You're like, yeah, does that ever exist, Dr. Alex? It does, I promise. Like, if you weren't worried about anybody else and what they thought or what you should be doing or any of that stuff, what would you consistently actually show up and do? That's my question for you to ponder today. And, sometimes, especially when it comes to being committed to our health, it might make things uncomfortable. This is where the parasite thing is going to come in. I've talked about parasites on the show. This is something I do with my clients as help, as part of our avenue to detoxing the body and getting hormones to work well and all of that. I tend to do a parasite cleanse with 99.99999% of the people that I work with. And I hadn't done I've been through it, but I haven't done it in about a year and a half, and I haven't done one since COVID, and I've been feeling like, maybe now's the time. And there's parasites are more active around the full moon, so I've been building up to the full moon in February. So I'm taking the stuff, and I actually just started. And generally it doesn't act that quickly in me. It'll take a couple days, maybe even a week before I notice things coming out. We're going to talk about poop here for a second. And on the plane today, I had some things come out. And so I'm in this awkward situation because sometimes there's one product that I use through Cellcore Biosciences. It's called Para One, but what it is, it's called Mimosa pudica seed. And Mimosa pudica seed is really, really sticky. So it binds to everything and it pulls out what's known as biofilm. So this is like stuff coating your intestines and gut lining that shouldn't really be there and that we want to get out. But it can also kind of get stuck because it's really sticky. So I, am in the bathroom on the plane wiping and I'm like, oh, this is going to be one of those moments. I'm just being really graphic here. I apologize if you don't want to hear about poop, but there's a point to this story. So it was one of those moments where you kind of have to wrap and get a hold and grab and tug because it was sticky and stuck and a bunch of stuff came out, which was cool. I was like, all right, we're getting some movement here. That's awesome. But I'm on a plane. And I share this in this context of commitment and priorities because so many of us let things stop us. It's, well, I'm going on a trip, so I'm not going to do this thing. Or I've got this going on, so I'll start after that. Or, there's always the next thing or the next time or the day when everything's perfect and you'll be committed to something. Or, when the stars align. And I talked about this a little bit last week, but, we come up with these reasons to not do the things that we really need to do and make them a priority and find some of that balance and just say, hey, I'm going to show up anyways, even if it doesn't look perfect or I'm tired or I'm on an airplane and passing parasites. That whole like, it's not consistently like that. And there's maybe like a couple times where that'll happen. So it just happened to be on the plane this morning and I was like, sweet, but when you're committed, like I'm committed, I'm still taking my supplements. I brought them with me in my little, I give all my clients supplement organizers. So I've got my 3 days supply of everything I need to take. I just took some before I started recording this, and I'm going to eat and then I'm going to take the rest of the stuff. But, you have to decide that you're either all in or you're going to keep kind of going through the yo-yo thing, or maybe you'll make some progress and then you fall off the wagon, and it's kind of like this up and down thing where you're doing some stuff but you're not really moving forward. So if you find yourself in that position, my challenge to you is to look at, how are you being in your life? What are you showing up and really being committed to? And is that what you want or need to be doing in order to really progress your health forward, your sanity forward, your ability to balance and actually, be able to make time for yourself in your day as well as other people forward? And looking at, where does the ebb and flow need to happen and what do you need to take on to maybe do or prioritize a little differently, whether it's day to day, week to week, moment to moment. Like certain days might be more your self-care days, other days are more your family days, but you have to have some of that. You have to have it built in. And then you got to just decide that you're doing it and do it no matter what. So, in kind of a long-winded way, those are my questions for you. You know, what when no one's looking, what do you consistently show up and do? Where do you make the excuses to things that you want to be committed to, but maybe you're coming up with all the reasons. We all have reasons why we can't do something, right? You're coming up with all the reasons why you can't do it and letting yourself be stopped before you even really get started. Where are those areas? And number 3, who do you really want to be? What do you want to be doing? I didn't used to be the person who would be super tired and go walk 10,000 steps at the mall. And I didn't even really need to go shopping that much. I was just like, it's cold here, like Alaska, and I needed something to do. And I was like, well, that's a place where I can go walk around. They also don't like absolutely 100% require masking at this point. And so at least outside of stores, I could, walk and actually breathe. So that was great. But, that all just aligns with the commitment I made to myself to be more active, to take, better care of myself this year. And also with doing this parasite cleanse and, not letting anything really get in the way of that and just making it a part of my day. So hopefully this helps serve you, gives you some deep thoughts to, really think about. And another thing I would encourage you on, like if you don't know the answers to these questions, or you're like, I don't really, or you don't want to face them too. Like most of us know what's going on, but maybe we're not ready to be confronted by ourselves. So if that's you, cool. Just spend some time. I'm really getting into and, starting to value the power of meditation in our lives, and just having that curiosity and exploration of ourselves and asking the question, like, what am I committed to? And then just waiting, not like, trying to supply the answer, but just kind of waiting to see what shows up. And then reflecting on that and asking, am I good with this? Or do I want to be committed to something else? And then go from there. So those are my tidbits for today. We covered it all: commitment, priorities, and parasites, all in one encompassing thought process for all of you. And with that, I look forward to seeing you all on our interview on Thursday, which is going to be a really fun one. I interviewed a woman who's in her 70s, and she has a lot of really hilarious and fun, strong opinions, but great information as well. So hopefully you will enjoy that, and I will see you next week.